Hi everyone, welcome again to my channel. I want to say thank you to everyone that has been subscribing, liking, and sharing my story. Sometimes just set aside a day to say thank you, and that's what I'm doing right now. Thank you to everyone for all the encouraging words, for all the liking, commenting, subscribing. I am grateful. Today,
When a well packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over many generations, the truth will seem utterly ridiculous and its speaker will sound like a raving lunatic. Nonetheless, those who knows the truth must teach. African proverb. Through their monopoly over information that are fed into our society, white historians have falsely marginalized the past existence of black people while falsely exalting the past existence of Caucasians. As a result of this fact, the collective self-image and collective self-esteem of Caucasians have been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-image and collective self-esteem of black people. The world is currently functioning based upon information that comes exclusively from the white society. This is a fact. The white society therefore literally owns what's deemed as being true. Here's what must be considered when acknowledging this fact. Whenever history is proven most notoriously deceitful, most inherently racist, and most narcissistic group of people are controlling what's deemed as being true, those same proclivities will manifest within the information that they present to the world. More specifically, they'll always feed the world lies that favors themselves, that exalts themselves, and that gives themselves greater social power and social capital over all other groups. It's the way they are. It's the way they've always been. And it's the only way they know how to be. It's the notoriously deceitful, racist, and narcissistic people they inherently are. This is our true hidden reality. We are not currently functioning based upon what is actually true. We are instead functioning based upon lies that favors, exalts, and that empowers the white society. Through their monopoly over information, the white society creates false information that are beneficial to their racial group, and they then impose them upon the world as being truths. The public at large then functions based upon those lies instead of what's actually true. It's an elaborate, illusory truth effect that is designed to create and sustain false assumptions within a society that greatly aids in maintaining white social dominance. The illusory truth effect is when people have been made to believe that false information is true because of being constantly subjected to the false information. And they then begin functioning based upon the false information instead of the true reality. It's the real matrix. The real matrix has nothing to do with a red pill. It's also not a computer simulation. It's an enormous illusionary truth effect grafted upon us and indoctrinated into our collective minds since birth through the white society's monopoly over information. Information shapes the public's perception of reality. Those who controls information that are fed into our society literally owns the perception of reality. Because the white society controls the information, they controls the interpretation of reality. They've literally whitewashed the perception of reality by repeatedly feeding false information that exalts their racial group into our society. The public at large then functions based upon those lies instead of the true reality. This is witnessed by the fact that they created a false religion that depicts God as being white and that places themselves at the beginning, at the top, and at the center of God's plans. As long as we continue believing that false religion, the white society's social power over us will remain intact. They've also whitewashed history to make their racial group appear more significant and more relevant throughout history than they truly in fact were, by falsely giving their racial group credit for most inventions that were actually achieved by black people. Case, point, and proof. White governed schools miseducates us to believe that Thomas Edison, a white inventor, is responsible for lighting up the entire world. But the true fact is that after Edison patented his light bulb, no companies purchased it nor mass produced it. This is because it was deemed not efficient enough. It lit very dimly and only lasted a few minutes. The inventor, whose light bulb was purchased by the U.S. Electric Company in 1881, then mass-produced, and that was dispatched around the world to oversee its installation, was actually, in fact, an African-American named Lewis Latimer. Therefore, in reality, it was actually a black man that lit up the entire world. Lewis Latimer literally wrote the book on electric lighting, and he holds the pattern for the first electric lamp. Lewis Latimer also wrote the blueprint plans for Graham Bell's telephone. The white society has also miseducated us to believe that the Wright brothers are responsible for building the first aircraft in 1909. However, the hidden fact is that before the Wright brothers flew their aircraft in 1909, a black man named Charles F. Page had already invented, patented, and flown an aircraft 3 years earlier in 1906. The white society has also miseducated us to believe that Henry Ford invented the first automobile. However, it was actually an African-American inventor named Charles Richard Patterson that built the first automobile. The C.R. Patterson and Sons Company started out as a carriage building firm in 1873. He and his son converted the company from a carriage business into an automobile manufacturer long before the 1900s. They started making automobiles before Henry Ford and sold the first one for $850. It had a 4-cylinder Continental engine. C.R. Patterson's automobiles were considered much more sophisticated. However, C.R. Patterson and Sons were forced out of business by Henry Ford in 1939. It's by deliberate design that most people are unaware of these historical facts. These facts have been deliberately expunged from the public record and omitted from our whitewashed history books. This practice of distorting facts to falsely give Caucasians credit for most inventions that were actually invented by black people has been repeated many times throughout history. The history we've been taught has been whitewashed. Through their monopoly over information that are fed into our society, the white oppressors have falsely marginalized the past existence of black people while falsely exalting their past existence. They've manipulated millions to believe that most inventions that revolutionized the world came from the minds of Caucasians, and to perceive black people as being the leeches of society that haven't invented much throughout history. But the truth is the exact opposite from what they've manipulated millions to believe. The hidden reality is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustices of racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized the world were either invented by black people or were directly inspired by early inventions made by black people. Without black people, there would exist no motors, no automobiles, no airplanes, no helicopters. Without black people, we would not have skyscrapers. We only have skyscrapers because black people invented the elevator, the fire extinguisher, the fire escape ladder, air conditioning, and the heating systems, which are essential in order for people to live or work within skyscrapers. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras nor microphones on our cell phones. We wouldn't have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have the cataract laser removal scope. There would be no emails, no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller ID, no home surveillance security systems, no home game cartridges, no steam engines, no traffic lights. Without black people, there would exist no refrigerators, no refrigerated trucks, therefore no ice cream trucks, no blood banks, no dry cleaning, no lawnmowers, no doorknobs, no 3D movies, etc., etc. Black people have in fact enriched the lives of nearly every person on this planet through our many inventions. However, this is not the reality that the world functions based upon. The world instead functions based upon lies deliberately created by the white society. The illusion that most inventions came from the minds of Caucasians, and the perception that black people are the leeches of society that haven't invented much throughout history. They've literally distorted the perception of reality. The true reality is much different than what they falsely manipulated people to believe. It's actually the genius minds of black people that moves the world forward. Excuse me. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception created by false narratives that have been repetitively fed to the public. The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is to control all of the information. If you can control all of the information, you can control the perception of reality. Because the white society controls all of the information that are fed into our society, it therefore literally owns the perception of reality. They therefore whitewash the perception of reality by systematically feeding false information to the public that falsely exalts their racial group and that falsely marginalizes black people. White historian justifies this unethical practice of whitewashing all facts as being merely the spoils of war, thus saying that it's customary for conquerors to distort facts and rewrite history to favor themselves. However, the true reason it's being done is much more self-serving of the white society. The true reason it's being done is because, according to white social scientists, in order for a dominant group to maintain its position of social dominance within the society, the narratives that are fed into our society, including the history, must endorse the dominant group's position of social dominance within the society. This means that the information fed into a society must exalt the dominant group above its subordinate populations. Doing so conveys a subliminal message that the dominant group, in this sense Caucasians, are inherently superior and are therefore supposed to rule over its non-white subordinate populations. This not only makes other racial groups more compliant with white dominance over our lives, it in fact makes many of us even prefer it. White social scientists describe this nefarious practice as merely instilling a value system into the collective minds of non-whites that makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. It makes us adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the white dominant society. White historians have also whitewashed ancient history to make their racial group appear more significant throughout history than they truly, in fact, were. This is witnessed by the fact that they miseducates us to believe that the world's first scholars were the Greeks. However, the hidden truth is that all of Greece's first scholars received their formal education in Africa's ancient Egyptian from African scholars. And although DNA analysis performed upon the mummies of the pharaohs of Africa's ancient Egypt have scientifically proven that they were in fact Africans, and although radiocarbon dating testings have scientifically proven that the ancient kingdom was built by Africans many thousands of years long before the arrival of the first Europeans and Arabs during the 7th century, the white society nonetheless ignores these facts and falsely depicts Africa's ancient Egyptians as being ridiculously as being Europeans. They removed themselves from their true ancient Neanderthal cave-dwelling origins and have falsely placed themselves upon the inspiring thrones of Africa's ancient Egypt, while falsely claiming themselves as being the highest evolved Homo sapiens. They endorsed this myth by, on their Darwin evolutionary charts, by placing themselves at the highest end of the scale while placing black people at the lowest end. This conveys a subliminal message that Caucasians are inherently superior to black people. This is what the white society does to their monopoly over information. But the truth is in fact the opposite, because Africans are not even included on the Darwin evolutionary chart. Unlike Caucasians and other racial groups that evolved from lower subspecies primates, Africans instead have always been Homo sapiens. The white society sits upon a throne of white exalting and black marginalizing lies. They even distort their published maps to make Africa appear 13 times smaller than its true relative size, while making all countries where whites comes from appear as being significantly larger than their true sizes. Not only have they distorted facts about the past to benefit themselves, they've also distorted our current narratives to create a false perception of reality that also greatly aids them in maintaining their social dominance within our current society. The truth is that currently the largest recipient of welfare, the largest benefactor of affirmative action and DEI programs, and the group that commits most violent crimes are in fact Caucasians. But again, this is not the reality that most people function based upon. We are instead functioning based upon lies that are designed to aid in maintaining white social dominance. It is called Orwellian propaganda. Orwellian propaganda describes societal conditions created and sustained by false propaganda, disinformation, misinformation, distortion of facts, denial of truth, and even the manipulation of the past to falsely exalt the white society, practiced by white oppressive governments. According to white social scientists, truth is not important. What's only important for controlling people and for steering society towards an implied objective is what's perceived as being true. Because people function based upon their perceptions of what's true rather than what actually is true. Therefore, by merely distorting all facts to create the perception of white racial superiority is all that's required for maintaining white social dominance within our society. I never said that what I teach would be easy for everyone to comprehend. I only said that it will be the truth that sets your mind free. It's time to wake up. Elevate your mind above those silly, feeble-minded premises and learn the truth of our planet condition. One love and peace.
I want you all to listen to this video that I stumbled upon. This guy was talking about the truth about the black that they do not want you to know. The black is obviously the chosen of God, and the DNA of the black has been 9 series that Every author DNA is just six. And this truth has been known by them, and most black do not know. And that is why I always share information just for the black folks to know who they are so that they can carry themselves in this reality. We have been created to be better. We have been created to be above. We have been created to be superior, even though they tend to proclaim that they are superior, they are better. You know, it is not in our nature to let anybody feel inferior. That is why it looks like they took that attribute and start acting it and treating everybody as lesser to them. Because in the reality, you don't just go to anywhere and make everybody feel like they are nothing, they are inferior, they are, you don't do that. Natural instinct, you don't do that. But from the creator, our attribute, our DNA carries that reality, and they know this. And that is why most of the time they they rewrite the narrative. They they make it obvious, they make it known by deliberately changing all the stories, all the archives that would have enabled, that would have pointed to this reality. They burnt some, they stole some, and they are using it to develop themselves. If you know the history of the black, you would know that when it comes to technology, we are the first. When it comes to university, we are the first. We were 32,000 ahead of 32,000 years ahead of them when they started their own university. So we are not at par. We are not at par. That's the truth. And that is why I said, when you know this truth, you'll know that you are not competing with them because they are not in our class of competition. That is the truth. But they rewrite all of this history. They eat some of them. It is what they want you to know that they bring out. So that's what we call changing of the narrative, so that you can feel less to them, but that is not the truth. And that is what this guy was saying, that a lot of the histories of the black things and achievement that was done, they stole it, they brought it down, and the archives of science that was conducted, done in the past, in the African history, they stole it. They now use it to go develop their continent. That's exactly what they did. So if you don't know, now you know. Africa was already far, far ahead and developed. There's light, there's everything. But they told you that there's no light. Africa is behind. Africa is not, they don't have education. It's a lie. We were writing, their first book was published in the 16th century, 1680 something, 80, 81 or 87. That's the first book they wrote. But we've been writing before that time. All of the archives that was stolen, we wrote them down. So what does that mean? We've been writing, we were educated, we were enlightened. We have scientists, we have architectural designs that is second to none all over the world. Let me also add this. The pyramid that was built, who do you think built it? It is black people that built it. And you won't see pyramid in anywhere. You see it in African continent. You see it in Sudan. You see it in, of course, in Africa, in Egypt, and all of that. You can't see it in those advanced countries. In Europe, in the West, you can't see it there. That goes to show that when it comes to architectural designs, the black folks who are ahead of them. And that is why they changed the narrative. They stole our artifact. They stole all of those evidences to go develop their continent. It would have been okay to say that if that's what they did, I mean, development should get to them. But now rewriting the history as though those achievements were done by palm colored people. That is the lie they told. And that is what this video and many of those videos I've done. Just click my video, you see all of the things I've done about the black success, the black greatness, and you see everything there. So it is time for black to know who they are and to arise in this reality, in this truth. And don't let anyone bring you down because you are created to be above and above alone. Thank you guys for watching. If you love this story and if you want more of these stories, do it to subscribe, like, and share, and turn on your notification button so that you can get updates whenever I post black histories, black stories, black achievement, and all of that. Thank you. I always say, stay in peace, stay in love, and avoid trouble. Bye for now.